We got some more details of the creep, of the freaking creep. He might not survive in jail, and that's fucking good. Let's go.
David is not having a good time behind bars, people. I've found out some information about what's going on behind bars, inside the jail, what the conditions that David is dealing with, and it's very, very serious. He looked like he was a mess when I saw him in the court. Yes, yesterday morning I literally saw him in the court. He was jangling through the courtroom in shackles in an orange jumpsuit. He was really having the true prison experience by the looks of him. And apparently the situation is actually quite serious. And a lot of people will be happy to hear that because of the awful crimes against children that he's been accused of. All right, this is the latest. I'm going to break down everything about what's going on with him inside jail, behind the wall. They're saying he's not on S-Watch, but there's no money on his jail books. So I don't know where all that music money is right now. But they're saying there's no money on his books. Says David is living a far different life than he was living a week ago. He traded his $15,000 a month LA rental for a cold jail cell with strict rules. They're saying the rules are strict. They're saying he might gotta, he might gotta do what they tell him. All right, he ain't the boss man. He ain't the big celebrity in there. He just a number and some PDF allegations, some paperwork. All right. Yeah. Law enforcement sources tell TMZ the musician charged with murdering Celeste Rivas is being held in a segregated single cell in the men's central jail. This is a serious big boy jail, all right? He ain't ready for the fades that he had lined up there. So David would be escorted from his cell to his shower, which he's allowed every other day, so he can't even shower every day. And the singer is only allowed to make phone calls on the days he is allowed to shower. So he's getting a shower phone call combo, and then he's got to stay himself a whole day. Sources are telling TMZ that David is allowed certain recreation time with fresh air, but only 3 hours a week. And he has no other contact with inmates during rec time. That's crazy. Again, I don't have any sympathy for him because of the situation and what it looks like he did, allegedly. But these are pretty rough conditions.
He still got contacts in his ass.
So David doesn't have access to a television. Oh, boo-hoo. And he can't have visitors at this time either. The source revealed that David doesn't have any money on his books at the moment either. Maybe he's going broke. In addition, one law enforcement source said the location where David is locked up is dirty and smells. The source described the facility as wild. He's not on S-Watch, according to sources, but other inmates who have been housed at this very jail include Blueface, Tory Lanez, Suge Knight, the Menendez brothers, and Danny Masterson. Says TMZ previously reported David was placed in segregation at the facility that can hold 5,640 inmates. So a rumor has it, all right, don't know if it's protective custody, if he's just segregated, he's rolling it up, he's on voluntary protection, who knows? But as we learned in the past few days, he is segregated, he is not making any friends, he's in the LA County Men's.
Man, chat, I hope they beat the dog shit out of his ass. I'm talking about just give him the stomp his ass out. Bro, stomp him.
Jail. And he was in segregation because he's a noteworthy inmate. It means he'll be alone with his thoughts most of the day. He was held briefly without bail at the LAPD 77th Street Station Jail, which is a notoriously cracking spot for fades, from what I understand. But there's been some more details of his jail conditions released, and people have been kind of speculating and giving their thoughts on that. So this is David's current jail conditions in bullet points, according to TMZ, as we already discussed. Let's just quickly breeze through it. Segregated single cell, escorted to the shower only every other day, can only make phone calls on the days he showers, 3 hours of rec time a week, no contact with inmates during recreation time, no access to a TV, no visitors, no money on his books, dirty and smells bad. He's not on S-Watch. Okay. And people are saying, what a well-deserved downgrade after living his life in a $15,000 Hollywood Hills home.
Hell yeah.
Crazy. Okay. Said, can you imagine spending years chronically online and then nothing? Hopefully he's losing just enough of his mind to be miserable, not to get off his charges.
He should
definitely be on S-Watch. They can't just let him escape life and punishment.
Right.
Because I feel like S-Watch is very necessary. I hope Celeste haunts his thoughts. Sounds too nice. Send him to the gulag. And it says no money on his books. Yeah. But it's a privilege to have snacks and stuff. It's not like he isn't being fed 3 square meals, but Might not be getting no snacks, no commissary, none of that stuff.
None of that.
This guy said, I only went there for processing in 2010. And as I was transferred to Wayside, it was really dirty and old. I saw a guy get jumped in front of the holding cells across from me. They told me I was lucky to transfer since a Wayside jail is supposedly better. It still sucked, but not as much as Central. So apparently,
I hope you have
he's
dreams
actually
about this
currently
shit.
housed in the same jail as another notorious inmate who we've discussed here on this channel before, Nick Reiner, who murdered his Hollywood hotshot parents. He is apparently also in the same jail. And, you know, I'm actually quite eager to get some updates on that case. Now that I know how to navigate the courthouse, I might have to pull up. Might have to pull up to the Nick Reiner trial. Might have to see what Nicky Boy's got going on, right? I believe they're saying it's the real-life Arkham Asylum. Nothing comes close to NYC's Federal Detention Center. You had 6ix9ine, El Chapo, Martin Shkreli, all these legends
they all
in there.
held in there.
So we got the TMZ article here. David moved to the same jail in LA as Nick Reiner. Okay, they're sharing the same roof. They're both locked up in the county, and they've been transferred to the Twin Towers Correctional Facility in downtown LA. Apparently the law enforcement want him transferred there because authorities want him under better supervision because he's a celebrity inmate at the center of a high-profile case. That's where David is on administrative segregation, not S-Watch. And that's the exact building that he's in. I believe I've driven past this building before, you know. So Nick's been at the Twin Towers since at least December while he's awaiting trial for the double murder of his parents, Rob and Michelle. Okay, so there's been some more reaction on Reddit as far as David's jail conditions and what he's dealing with in there, not being on S-Watch. People are a bit surprised. So I hope he has no fans left to put money on his account. He always will, unfortunately. Well, yeah, he's in jail. It's rougher than prison anyway, in many ways. People would have thought prison was way worse, but not all. More privileges in prison. Jail is a nasty, dirty holding tank, really. TMZ calling him a rapper at the end had to be racially motivated. He's not even close. Not even rapping. He ain't even really spitting bars. He barely could sing. He'll always be in segregation with his nasty weirdo shit on his paperwork. He'll never be accepted in general population. The only way he'll ever see Gen Pop is if he makes it to a prison yard at like Corcoran SHU, where the GBGs run shit and all of his cellmates are PDFs like he is. That's crazy. Says, doesn't matter where he goes, the Mexicans in Cali will find a way to get him eventually, even if it's years later. Don't forget, Tory Lanez was in PC when he got stabbed. Bad paperwork plus not a gang member equals no help. Saying, I'm worried about MS-13s who members are mostly Salvadorian. Love hearts, all right? There might be Get Back for Celeste. There might be, look, I'm not even trying to make light of the situation, but Slide for Celeste might become a real thing. And I'm not condoning, not calling for violence, but someone might slide for Celeste. That'll be a hell of a video to make, all right? I'll be here following up if somebody slides for Celeste.
Gonna get his ass.
Acting like Mexican gangbangers who recruit children at 12 are going to be upset about David is definitely something special. If they're mad because they wanted to get to her first, they're saying that there's other, let's not do all that. Anyway, LOL, his label dropped him. That money's going to stop coming in real quick. People need to stop streaming his music on Spotify. Apparently his monthly listeners have increased or something like that. Man, shake my head. Also, he should not have any kind of electronic access, period. Sick fuck. Hope it stays that way. Says if he can't use a phone regularly, he isn't getting a tablet either. Maybe he can get commissary. It would seem his parents would put money on it if he could use it. Saying David is so dumb, he probably thinks he can play Fortnite when he goes to prison. Either way, justice for Celeste is all that matters. I hope he rots in a jail cell or gets the DP. If he does get extradited immediately, he doesn't deserve to breathe the air she doesn't get to. So there's a little update. Hang on. So the last thing I want to leave you with that's interesting, and this might be a little sign of things to come, a lot of people have been drawing parallels to the Ian Watkins case. He was an English singer, pop singer, or kind of rock and roll singer who was convicted of very, very serious crimes against children. And he ended up getting a big sentence, and he ended up getting murked in jail. You might remember a few months ago when he got killed, I made a video saying we smoking that Ian Watkins pack. This guy is an absolute despicable scumbag who committed crimes against children, literally babies. And so he really deserved to go out like that. And you
Goodbye.
never know, we might see David go out the same way, okay? And people saying, thinking about it, David's case lines up with the Lost Prophets case in quite a few ways. He was born and raised elsewhere and either was or at least seemed to be a relatively normal guy. Early family life, very close to the church. He blew up, got famous, and started working and living in LA around those kinds of people. Like a big star, it went to his head. He ended up falling in with the wrong people, got on hard drugs, notably meth in both cases. This drug use would tie directly into the later depraved, sickening acts against minors. They leaned into emo aesthetics in their art. They both had a very similar way of trying to appeal to kids through current trends and memes. Ian's mega lols around 2010 might as well have been David's Labubu toss of his time. Both hinted at their crimes in their music videos, with David's allusions to homicide, murder, and death all over his music, particularly in Romantic Homicide with him killing a Celeste lookalike, and Lost Prophets doing a notorious, horribly aged Mr. Rogers-themed music video for Town Called Hypocrisy. Crazy. Both were discovered to have illegal material on their devices during the case, as well as multiple victims. I think the only real difference is that as far as we know, David didn't target nearly as young, and I don't think there was a murder in Ian's case, but in both cases, they deserve the same fate. Ian spent over a decade of his life behind bars, with other inmates siphoning off all of his money, and then when it went dry, he was killed, hoping similar for David. Ian Watkins was also a meth user, which fuels the most depraved behavior, but in no way an excuse for anything either of them did. But it's lucky that David never reached the level of fame and power that Ian did. It could have been so much worse. Okay, and Ian Watkins' password on his computer was IF Kids. That was his password. This guy was disgusting. Okay, I don't even want to get too into what was going on. All right, he was apprehended in 2012 on drug charges. He got bail. He'd already attracted attention from law enforcement. Apparently, he was smuggling cocaine and meth from LA. Then he was arrested for drug possession, and that he possessed an obscene image of somebody he shouldn't have. He pled not guilty to the image after being granted a bail, but then he ended up getting caught up for even more serious charges. So I don't think many people knew this, but before the band broke up, there was a show on the Warped Tour towards 09 to 011. We realized that Ian had a depressingly sad drug addiction. It just snuck up on us because unfortunately we were living in LA. And they're saying David tossing Labubus kind of similar to what this guy was doing on stage. And in the end, he ended up getting smoked in the prison by another inmate. And the guy that killed him is low-key gone down a bit of a legend. I'm not going to lie to you. So that was Megalols for sure. But look, I do think that he might be in trouble in the jail. He's got a very serious situation on his record. Who knows if the Hispanic gang members might...
I hope they get his ass. I hope he rot in hell, too. Fuck that nigga.